Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. Today we're going to start the issue of the ahkam of praying behind the people. What is the position with Ahlul Hadith, Ahlul Sunnah, praying behind people who have issues in the Aqidah and the details that need to be understood in this particular issue, taken from the book that was written by the Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ruhaili, who is a strong student of knowledge, a sheikh who's in Medina right now. He wrote a tremendously beneficial book called Mawqif Ahl al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah min Ahl al-Ahwa wal-Bid'ah, the position of Ahl al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah in regards to dealing with the people of desires and innovation. He's one of the shuyukh who gives advice and he writes books trying to keep the people on the sunnah in the middle and balanced. He's not from the people who go overboard. And in saying that there are people who go overboard, we have to realize that in al-Islam, in hadith, in fiqh, you have people mutashaddid, you have people mutasahil, and you have people in the middle. That's just how Bani Adam, this is how people are. You have the people who are rough and tough in hadith, talking against men, narrators. You have people who are rough and tough, mutashaddid in fiqh. The positions that they take in fiqh are really rough and tough. Then you have the other side, people who are very lenient in hadith. People who are very lenient in their fiqh. Then you have those people in the middle. So when I say mutashaddid, I don't want anyone to sit there and always focus just on one group of people, because it's not just about one group of people. This is a phenomenon. This is the nature of Bani Adam. In al-Hadith, they used to say that Al-Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in was mutashaddid in the way that he used to criticize people. They used to say that Al-Imam Ahmed Bukhari were in the middle. They used to say that Al-Imam Al-Tirmidhi, Al-Hakim were mutasahil. They were easy. So if someone were to say Yahya ibn Ma'in was mutashaddid, that's not talking about Yahya ibn Ma'in, that great scholar muhaddith, in a bad way. It's just the reality. So the point here is the Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ruhaili, whenever young brothers, people of the Sunnah, go to Medina, they meet him, they hook up with him, his advice is always the advice of the middle course. Be on the Sunnah and be relaxed being on the Sunnah. Don't be of the people who are too rough, and don't be of people who are too easy. Anyway, because as we mentioned before, Ikhwani, we want to give this topic is due diligence. We want to really take our time in understanding this issue, because it is a practical issue. I came with Brother Adil, the last King of Scotland. We were of the impression that the Salat was 9 o'clock, so I don't know. People were telling me that there were more people here, so we're not going to do this today, unless some of you just insist that we start today. If you brothers insist, then we'll do it today. But there are some people who are having hirs on this class. They were having some hirs, and I assume that they got up and left. Do you brothers insist, or should we start next week? It's up to you, brothers. Aywa, what's your opinion? Here's one of them calling me now. What's your opinion? Abu Umar from Albani. What's your opinion, Ikhwan? Is that okay with you, Ismail? You're not going to be upset? All right, inshallah, we'll suspend it until next week, inshallah, but that doesn't prevent us from saying something today. When the three Mashaykh came from Al-Medina last week, they went to Alam Rock and they gave some lectures in Alam Rock, in the Masjid al-Muhammadi there. And the titles of the lectures were very clear. They were lectures like who are al-Hadith, the importance of the Sunnah and the people of the Sunnah and being from the people of the Sunnah. And one of the talks was the importance of the seerah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our practical lives. When they came, they gave some lectures that were beneficial. And then after that, the next day, we went to London with them at a masjid where I teach on Thursday called Masjid al-Sunnah in Tottenham. That's where the riots kicked off from, when that guy was killed in Tottenham. And it was right up the street from the masjid. As a matter of fact, the Aldi that's right in front of the masjid was burnt down. A lot of damage was done to the elder. Point is, when we went, the sheikhs were sitting before the brothers in Masjid al-Sunnah. The majority of the brothers, they are Somali. I don't know any masjid in the UK that pays more attention to teaching the students the memorization of the Quran than this masjid. They have a bundle of brothers who have memorized the Quran, and some who are close on their heels, and many who have memorized half of the Quran, and so forth and so on. For every Maghrib, every Isha, different brothers are leading because there are so many, and they're cultivating the younger people on memorizing the Quran. Anyway, the mudir, or the manager, the one who's in charge of the masjid, he wanted to introduce the mashaykh. He introduced them as ulama, and he kept saying the ulama, scholars, and he kept saying it, he kept saying it. Then when it was time for the first one to speak, who seemed to be the most knowledgeable one and the eldest of the three, I asked him, could I say a few words? He said yes. So we explained to them that we don't have any ulama in the UK. We don't have any ulama in the UK. Ulama who are visiting or ulama who are bred here. We don't have that. We have some knowledgeable people like Abu Suhaib, the Jordanian, who teaches here and there. The man up in Leeds has a lot of knowledge of the hadith. Abdullah bin Yusuf al-Juday, he's probably the most knowledgeable person in this country concerning hadith. And if you were up in Leeds, I would advise you, take hadith from that particular man. We have some competent, qualified people who know their religion, they know what they're doing, but we don't have ulama, and we shouldn't go overboard. Those sheikhs came, they are strong students of knowledge. We had some ulama who came here before, like Sheikh Nasr al-Din al-Albani came a long time ago, and recently we had the Sheikh Saleh al-Sadlan. He's a scholar. Saleh al-Sadlan, the old sheikh who came who was blind. He was a scholar. He is a scholar. Anyway, the reason why we mention that to the brothers is that we have this problem amongst ourselves, the problem that affected all of the groups in al-Islam that went astray. The Qadariyah, the Jahmiyyah, the Khawarij, the Murji'ah, Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Jamaat al-Tabligh, Sufis. One of the biggest problems that people have when you're part of a group is going overboard in personalities. Going overboard in personalities. Taking an individual and looking at that individual and making him higher than his reality. It is a fitna. This is one of the biggest reasons why Salafi people are fighting each other right now, because we go overboard in personalities. This is my sheikh, and he has the ability to make ijtihad. He takes a position in his ijtihad. I don't have to follow him in that ijtihad. If I took the ijtihad and I disagree with him, then it's no problem. I took the ijtihad of someone else and I agree with him. This sheikh's students shouldn't be against me and I shouldn't be against them. We should respect each other. This is the way the Salaf used to be. But now we have this issue where the people are on teams and we're fighting each other. So I wanted to take this opportunity to mention this issue and to warn against this issue, because it has nothing to do with the Salafiyah, and we can't be afraid of people when it comes to mentioning these things. There was the Tarjuma of Al-Imam Ahmed, his biography, Al-Imam Ahmed, in Sir A'lam al-Nubala, man who wrote about his life story. And Imam al-Dhahabi, he mentioned that Al-Imam Ahmed, some of his students came from the majlis of another man who used to talk bad about Al-Imam Ahmed. That man used to talk bad about Al-Imam Ahmed. His kunya was Abu Quraib al-Hamdani. Abu Quraib al-Hamdani. He said to his students, where are you people coming from? They said, we're coming from the majlis of Abu Quraib al-Hamdani. Al-Imam Ahmed said, listen to me. Take from him hadith and learn from him and write from him. His students said, how can you say that when he says bad things about you? He's talking negatively about you and he's criticizing you. Al-Imam Ahmed said, it is a shame that I will be a trial from a man who is righteous. He called Abu Quraib Rajulun Salih. He's a righteous man. How can we, and why would you tell us and encourage us to take from him, and he criticizes you and he says bad things about you? Al-Imam Ahmed said, it is a shame that I would be a bala, a fitna for Rajul Salih. The point here is Al-Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala, he was the Imam of Ahl Sunnah. He was the Imam of the Sunnah Haqqa. Al-Imam Ahmed, they call him the Imam of Ahl Sunnah, and he was really the Imam of Ahl Sunnah. But although he was the Imam of Ahl Sunnah, the individual who criticized Al-Imam Ahmed, that criticism didn't put him outside of the Sunnah and off of the Sunnah. And Imam Ahmed was the Imam of Ahl Sunnah, but he does not represent the Sunnah, he does not represent Al-Islam. If someone doesn't like him for some personal reason, some kalam between them, he doesn't like him, that doesn't mean that that man doesn't like the Sunnah. If someone were to criticize Al-Imam Ahmed truthfully with the haqq or with batil, that doesn't mean that that individual goes outside of the Sunnah. Al-Imam Ahmed didn't look at people like that. And he was really the Imam of Ahl Sunnah. Now, if a person has a problem with scholarship and he has a problem with the ulama, and it's a proven point that he hates Al-Imam Ahmed because of his Sunnah, the Sunniyah of Al-Imam Ahmed, then that's a different issue. That's a different issue. But just because the man had a problem with him, Al-Imam Ahmed did not accept that people would look at this issue and throw people outside of the Sunnah because of issues like this. We have during this time this problem because of the ghulu that we have in individuals. Just like the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, if you say anything negative about Sayyid Qutb, about Hassan al-Banna, rahimahumullah, if you mention anything negative about them, and it may be true, the person says Sayyid Qutb, the Shaheed Sayyid Qutb, and you say to him, don't say the Shaheed Sayyid Qutb because you mean he's in Jannah. If you say that, that individual will get upset with you. Salafis, a Salafiyah, this is not acceptable in a Salafiyah. You young brothers, don't be like that. Don't be like that. If the man doesn't like Al-Imam Ahmed because of a personal issue, that's bad what he's doing. But his dislike for him does not take him off of or out of the Sunnah. This is a ghulu that is not permissible. As for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to ask you brothers this question. You give me your opinion. That same individual, he doesn't like the Prophet of Islam for some reason. He doesn't like that he was an Arab. He doesn't like that he was in Medina. He doesn't like something about him. Does that take him outside of the Sunnah? That's a question. The person doesn't like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does that take him outside of the Sunnah? That clearly takes him outside of the Sunnah. Because the Nabi, he is the embodiment of the Sunnah. He is the Sunnah. So if that person is disliking the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he knows what he's doing, he's outside of Islam. He's outside of Islam. As for an individual, everything that he says, everything that he does, every position of his, you have to take it. And if you don't take it, something's wrong with you and your Islam and your Sunnah. This is something that's not acceptable. Because we hear, and this stuff is written, we hear people saying that Sheikh so-and-so is the Sunnah today. Like Al-Imam Ahmed was the Sunnah yesterday. That is mubalagha and that's ghulu. If you're saying something like that, that's crazy. Yes, they used to test the people in the past about how people look at some of the Imams of the Sunnah. How did this person view Abu Huraira? How did this person view Al-Imam Ahmed? How did this individual view different individuals from the Sunnah? But not just like that, because there's no single human being who is the symbol of Al-Islam by himself. Not like that. So with that being the case, Khwani, in these issues of ijtihad, where we have ikhtilaf, and the scholars have ikhtilaf, and ikhtilaf, ijtihad is allowed in those issues, not permissible for us to hate one another based upon these issues. He said, that man is no good. Someone else said that he's good, and you took that position. It's not acceptable for these people over here to say this guy is astray, or for these people over here to say that guy is astray. That is the way of the innovators. Asabiyah, that's not permissible in Al-Islam. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, when he used to disagree with the people, he used to say, I believe that my opinion is correct, but my opinion is open to being incorrect. I believe it's correct, that's why it's my opinion, but it's possible that it can be incorrect. And I believe that the opinion of my opponent is incorrect, but it's possible that it is correct. That was the humility of those imams. Today, Salafis say, and you will hear the sheikh saying it with his own lisan. Sheikh so-and-so does not make mistakes in the minhaj. Every position and opinion that he took in the minhaj was correct. And the sheikh says that about himself as well. The sheikh says, when you go against me, you go against the Salafiyah. When you criticize me, you criticize a Salafiyah. Brothers, we need to wake up and smell the coffee. People who are saying this and believing in this, something is wrong with your Salafiyah. Something is wrong with you and your Salafiyah. That's not the Salafiyah that we saw the scholars of the past, way in the past upon, and that's not the Salafiyah that we saw the scholars of today upon. We see this with a group of Muslims who have been duped by shaitan, and this is one of the biggest causes and one of the biggest reasons that we have these problems. And now we find the mushkila that's happening that some of you are aware of with the brothers in Yemen, and some of those brothers who are with Yemen just supporting that side because that's where they are. Brothers who originate from the UK and America. So they're with the Yemeni side just because that's where you are. And then we have the people with the other side, and we're just with them because we're with them. This is not the way we take positions. We take positions by listening to what people are saying and weighing the issue, and we take positions based upon knowledge, based upon yaqeen, based upon basira, based upon a taqwa. That does not mean that I'm saying here. Does not mean everyone who is Yemen is doing what I just mentioned, and everyone who supports that is doing. It doesn't mean that. Nor does it mean in the fitna between the shuyukh of Ahl Sunnah that I'm telling you get involved and take a position. I'm saying if you are tried and you're mubtala and you're taking a position, don't take positions based upon that. The football team, you're with this group and with this group, no matter what happens. The ghulu is a big mushkila and is not accepted in the deen of Allah Ta'ala. No ghulu. Even when people try to make gimmicky kalam and fancy kalam, someone said from the dua today, and I'm just talking about this statement of his only, this statement of his, and perfection is only with Allah. He said, yes, I'm an extremist. I'm an extremist. These kuffar, now Muslims, they're calling me extreme. They're saying that we're extreme. He said, yes, I am an extremist. I'm extremely generous. I'm extremely kind to my guests. I'm extremely humble. And he made a play on words. Extreme is not acceptable in any shape, form, or fashion in this deen. You can't be extremely kind. You can't be extremely anything. And I know it was a play on words. And there's no mashaha in the mustalahat. And issues like this, we don't make a big deal, but the point that I'm making is no extreme is acceptable in the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Stay away from ghulu in all of its shapes, forms, and its fashions. And one of the worst types of ghulu is the ghulu to shuyukh, worshiping personalities, worshiping individuals. Whatever the sheikh says, that's it. It was a time, Ikhwani, when we used to say, I don't blindly follow Imam Abu Hanifa. The man was Hanafi all of his life. He became Salafi and he had the ability to say, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa made a mistake in this issue and I'm not taking his position. And we used to have izzah to be able to say that. And now the situation is, if you were to say, I don't follow the Sheikh so-and-so and everything that he says, people are going to attack you. It's going to be a question mark over your Islam and your Salafiyah. This is not the Salafiyah that we buy into, that we believe in, that we're upon. That's the Salafiyah of the Juhal. And the ulama of al-Islam today are not upon that. And the sheikhs who are calling people to that, because wallahi, people are being cultivated on this. Statements are being gathered where sheikhs are saying stuff. And I tell you that the Ajami, they don't even know what's going on, but people are saying things that show, yes, they're cultivating people on this nonsense. As for the ulama, the kibar ulama, the mufti of Saudi Arabia, for an example, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, people like that, and Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, they don't accept from people this type of understanding. And as we mentioned before, we'll end with this, Ikhwani. We respect the ulama of Saudi Arabia, the lajna of the kibar ulama. We respect them as being a marja in al-Islam. They are a recognized point of reference. You want a fatwa about fasting, salat, divorce, inheritance, or whatever, that's a safe place where you can get a fatwa from. But if you don't accept their points of view and their fatwa based upon dalil, you have not gone against the ijma'. You can't even say that anymore. If you said that today, there are some people who would say you're against the ulama. They do not represent all of the ulama in al-Islam. That legend could say, as Sheikh so-and-so wrote a book, and then his book is irja. You go back and you read that book and you say, I don't agree with what they said. I don't agree. This book does not represent irja, in my opinion. That doesn't mean you're more knowledgeable than those sheikhs. That doesn't mean that you're being disrespectful to those sheikhs. That means you wasn't convinced. But you as a student, you have to know your position. You have to know your position. But again, what is Salafiyah? A Salafiyah is the young man knowing the truth and the shuyukh and ulama of the companions, radiyallahu anhum, not knowing the truth. That can happen. That can happen. Someone give me an example of that. Where the ulama of the companions didn't know the answer to the issue, and the young person from the companions who became a scholar later on, he knew the answer. Someone give me an example of that. Akhi Hakim, Abdul Hakim. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the people there is a tree in the desert, and that tree is like the believer. The leaves of the tree don't fall off. What tree is that? Abu Bakr, Umar, his father, Uthman, those major scholars, they didn't answer the question. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he knew the answer. He knew the answer. Anybody else have another example? Hey, students, anybody else have another example? Last king of Scotland. Good job. Ibn Abbas. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's cousin Abdullah ibn Abbas was sitting with Umar, who was the Khalifa, and with Umar were the people of his shura, the kibar of the ulama of the companions. And he read the ayat, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. Umar told those people, tell me the meaning of this surah. And they all gave their opinions. Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was only 17, 18 years old, he gave the answer. These people were not happy. Some of them, radiallahu anhum, they said, why is Ibn Abbas allowed to sit with us and we have children his age who don't sit with us? He said, I'll tell you why. Allah said in the Quran, and he told him Surah Al-Nasr, what does it mean? No one got it. Abdullah ibn Abbas, tell me, what does it mean? He told him the meaning of it. So that's a second incident. It wasn't just a one-offer. Someone give me another example. Anybody know another example? Last king of Scotland, the Sheikh. Good job. Good job, Akhi Adil. What's the deal, Adil? The incident in which Umar was the Khalifa again, radiyallahu anhu. And Abu Musa al-Ash'ari came and knocked on the door 3 times and no one opened the door. And then he left. And then later on when Umar saw him, he said, you at the door? He said, yes. Why didn't you stay? He said, I heard the Nabi say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari said, I heard the Prophet say, if one of you knocks on someone's door 3 separate times and it's not open, then go away. Umar said, I never heard that hadith. You better bring someone to validate, to corroborate what you're saying, to collaborate with you and support what you're saying. I'm going to deal with you. Spreading weak hadith of the Nabi, he went to the masjid, radiyallahu anhu, Abu Musa, and he found the Ansar there. He told them the story. The Ansar started to smile at him and laugh at him. They said, he said, what are you laughing at? What are you smiling at? They found it amusing. They said, we're going to send the youngest one from amongst us with you to the Amir al-Mu'mineen. The youngest one from amongst us is going to go with you to collaborate that story. Who went with him? Anybody know? Who went with him? He's known for his kunya. Abu starts with a sin. Abu what? Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, radiyallahu anhu. So the point here of all of that, Khwani, is, the point here is, the youngster who reads that book, he's not on the level of the kibar ulama, but no one has a monopoly on the truth. So the legend of the kibar ulama, they don't have a monopoly on the truth. If they say that a woman is not allowed to drive a car, and you come and you say, I don't accept that fatwa because of A, B, and C, and D. No one in his right mind is going to come to you and say to you, you're against the ulama because your wife drives a car. Your wife drives a car. They give rulings like that. You look at it and you can agree, you can disagree. Just don't be of the people who take either side of the extreme. The people who think that they are better and bigger than those ulama, or the other extreme that they have a taqdees. They're holy. Allah is al-Qudus. Al-Taqdees means that something is holy, sanctified. The Ruh al-Qudus. Something is, we make people a taqdees. We make them muqaddas. This individual is like Mecca and Medina. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. So the point that we want to make, Khwani, is be Salafi in the middle, balanced, and don't fall into that hole of going overboard with and in any personality. Stay in the middle. Respect, honor, reverence, have a taqarrub ila Allah, like that. Get close to Allah by respecting. That's from the deen. And not being of the people who do the other extreme, minimize the place of the scholar, being disrespectful towards the scholar. This is something that is not acceptable. So inshallah ta'ala, Ikhwani, Sunday we'll continue our Sharh al-Sunnah class, and then we'll do the issue about the Salat on Tuesday. If you brothers have any questions or any additions you want to add on to what we just put forward, feel free to do so. هل عندكم شيء؟ Okay. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أخي إسماعيل ميزان